This is a recording of Irving L. Bud Miller of 2926 Southeast 10th Place, Cape Coral, Florida, 33904. Bud's phone number is area code 813-549-0259. The recording was made on January 19th, 1989 by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center at Bud's home in Cape Coral. This is tape number 1 of 3 tapes. Bud, would you give us your name and address and phone number, please?
Bud Miller, 2926 Southeast 10th Place, Cape Coral, Florida, 33904.
Okay.
Telephone 813-549-0259.
All right. Now we're going through a book of photographs, which is labeled I. L. Miller, Olds Forge 1, 2, or 12/23/40 to 1/31/76. Very good. And let's start with the very first one, right on the top here. It's a group photograph of who are all those people, just not who they are, but what is the occasion?
It's all the supervisors at Plant 2.
All right.
At this time.
Did everybody wear a white coat like that? Or was that just for...
They decided that they were going to dress us up a little.
Oh, okay.
So we had those white coats for a number of years. I don't know, quite a few years anyway.
Okay. And the guy on the left-hand side with the suit is
Tom Darkin.
Tom Darden. And the guy on the far right-hand side,
that's
C.B. Dakin.
Yeah, C.B. Dakin.
And perhaps John Niehaus
Niehaus
next to him. Okay. And are you in there somewhere?
Oh yeah, I'm right there.
Oh yeah, okay. I see about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ninth guy from the right-hand side with the white coat on in the back row.
We'll craft this back row. We'll see what I can do.
Okay. Let's gonna try the back row.
Bill Mounts.
Oh, okay.
Joe Newton. Can't think of his name.
Okay.
That's real heavy. And standing behind him is Milt Nye. That's the first one in that far back row.
Okay.
The second one in the far back row is Frank Barrett. His name is Willard Howell, I think.
All right.
Then there's me. Then behind him is Mike Veely, Nolan Burns, Kirby Roll. He worked in the dining.
Okay.
Can't remember his name.
All right. Next guy.
Elmer Miller.
Okay.
That's Jake Cease.
Okay.
Yeah, I just seen Ray Nunn.
Okay.
Bert Pell. Look like Duke Hardesty.
Okay.
Bert Zavich.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Wiley Beeman.
Those were in the plant engineering department, weren't they?
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember his name. He was a head electrician.
All right.
He worked in the dye room.
Okay.
He was worked for Wiley Phillipson.
Jim Phillipson? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Looks like Bailey, but I'm not sure.
Is that Bill?
Bill Bailey?
Bill Bailey, yeah.
He worked in the dye room. That guy was a foreman for me,
Okay,
but he worked on the heat treat.
yeah,
I can't think of his name. That's no fire right there.
okay,
Boy, he worked. That's Wayne Steinkamp.
okay.
Well, that's Harold Olds there.
Oh, okay, I remember him, yeah.
He was the clerk in the dining room.
Okay, yeah, I sort of remember the face. Now we're down the front row.
That's Freddie Novak there, the first fellow. Jim maybe.
Okay. Freddie Novak's the second guy from the left. Okay,
Who's this guy? Barney Hunt.
okay, fourth guy.
Don't ever play golf with him. Oh boy. He worked for me. Louis Culp.
Mm-hmm.
He was out in the steel yard. That's Petrie.
Okay,
And he worked with him. And this is Joe Schaefer. That's Vic Perry. That's George Sammer. And that's Charlie Alling.
okay,
Art Schenkel. That's Ralph McNatt. That's Old Man Coolidge.
okay.
It's Pratt.
Can't tell.
He knew that. Yeah. He worked in the lab, rubbing.
Okay.
Lloyd Pierce,
Oh, yeah,
Donnie Malika.
yeah.
Who's that? I don't know. That's Emil Zern.
On the far right.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, that's great, Buzz. That's pretty
Maybe I'll
good.
think some of those.
Yeah. Now, is this taken at the same time, this smaller group?
Yeah, I think they were.
Mm-hmm. See, did we decide when this was? Did you tell me when you thought about this
I can't
was?
tell you when this was, but it had to be before 1915. I think it was about 47 or 48.
Hey, here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the guys' names on the back. Well, here's the names. It says, June 1950. I don't know what the 60 is in there for.
50. Glenby Park.
Oh, I know why. This is who's still in the department in 1960. This must have been taken in June of 50.
Okay. Okay.
So that makes some sense. Yeah.
Let's
So
see. Oliver Franks.
is
First one.
first guy on the left, right?
Wiley Demon. He's way down here.
Well, he's jumping around, isn't he? With the age, so.
Bill Bailey. He's standing next to Wiley.
Doug Park.
All right, he's the electrician. I said back there,
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
he? Jake Goff, and this fella here,
John Stefan.
Stefan behind him,
Okay.
and that's Bert Pell there.
Max Liga. Should be
Right,
somewhere.
again is
That's Max right there, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay, so the second guy from the left is Max. I can read their names practically, I think, with a little
Bell.
L. At least the front guys.
Joe something,
Center in the back.
and that's Phillipson back there.
Oh, yeah, I recognize the face. Boy, has he got the hair there. Third guy, or the fourth guy is Jim Phillipson.
He was a machine shop foreman.
Okay.
Him and Milt Farr.
Uh-huh. All right, let's stick that baby back in the slot then so we don't lose it.
The artist rendition of the plant, and we go to
Is that when we were getting ready to do something to it, build a building or something there, Don?
That's within
Get that baby in there. Lay flat. This was 1943.
Yep.
That sound about right? Okay.
some of these pictures are dated, see?
Oh, yeah, 44. Was this, were you there? When did you start?
40.
40?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you saw all this happen? Sort of.
I saw a lot of things
Yeah,
happen.
well, I know.
Especially when this was going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
These are all construction photos of that time.
You talk about it.
Holy pig, look at the iron. It's a dead of winter, it looks like.
This was 2/23/44.
Driving pines. Got some iron up now.
See, this put the hammer shop and
The 207 and 208. Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
that thing still on.
Oh, yeah, sure. It'll get a lot of ums and ums, but that's okay.
This was the lab set up, start to be set up.
All right.
This was some office buildings up on the second floor.
Well, it must have been the office building that's there right now, isn't it? Okay. All right. Yeah. Here we are installing something.
And
Or
Yeah.
something.
uh,
Must be inside of 206.
this is the hammer line back here. See, see the hammer here and the steam lines come over.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and these are the trim presses.
Okay.
These are the furnaces
Yeah.
that were setting there during the war.
All right.
Now, during the war, we didn't have them big long pushers
Oh,
in
okay.
there. We're making shells on the hammer,
Yeah.
5mm shells on the hammer. And setting up a hammer, aren't they? No, there's hammers.
There's a couple of hammers in there.
Couple hammers, yeah, they're steam hammers. Here's, they're putting in the base.
Okay.
Now, that just had part of the base.
Big sucker, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but that sets on a sub base that is bigger than that.
All right.
That down in there and sitting on 12x12 white oak timber.
Way down underground, so to speak, in the pit.
Yeah, it's sitting down there on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
A pit, it's a pit.
Yeah.
And 12x12s. The full width across, they'll be bolted together. Then running in the opposite direction, there's another pad, another pad of them.
What was that? What did that do?
Stored some of the shock.
Otherwise, it would just bat itself into the concrete in the bottom.
No, but it would anyway, but it would. It stored some of the shock.
Yeah.
You know, when these hammers are running,
Yeah.
you weren't there when hammers.
No, well, see, most of the hammers were gone when I came. Were just a few of them. Yeah.
If you'd have these hammers running, and you know where my office was
Yeah.
upstairs?
Yeah.
You'd sit there and you'd have something on the table and it'd go right across the table just like that.
Oh, hey. And all those were mounted that same way on these timbers down
Yeah,
down underneath.
all hammers are mounted.
There's the pickle roll.
Yeah, pickle roll. Looks like 206.
Okay. Yeah, it's a low bay building. Yeah. Or offices somewhere. Or that's cafeteria. Now, is that the base they're sticking down in there?
This is the, what you call a hammer base, and there's a sub base that
Below
goes
that.
couple pins down there, and then
Yeah.
there's a big key that goes forward.
Okay.
See, that's forged steel.
It is, that great big hunk of iron. Right. Okay.
This is the heat treat see going in. These
Oh, yeah.
are probably the quench fix.
Okay. Mhm.
Smaller than heat treat. And
All
there's
right.
some heat
Oh, the
treat
furnaces, yeah.
The big thing.
Okay, well, this is a press up here in the top, bud. Here. That's a,
That's a 2,500 ton press.
okay. Something. He's got
Well, we were making, what part?
yeah.
This picture here. Picture here, I'm sure, was taken. Dated under that.
Down. No date, but just a number. Yeah.
Uh, that looks to me like, and because of that generator there, that this was, taken during, the Korean War,
Oh, okay.
when we were making jet blades.
Oh, oh, that could be. You think maybe that's a blade, forger?
Yeah, we made the jet blades up
Yeah.
there. And this is a Westinghouse furnace. And, it's the type of furnace that we had over there.
An induction heater was that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was different than the induction heater that we had,
For the rods?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why this
Okay.
generator looks different.
Yeah, that's a big old heat treat
Yeah.
furnace.
Yeah.
Holy Pete, what are we looking into there?
This is just where it transfer from high heat, into the quench.
Oh, yeah,
and then
in the
into
middle.
Draw.
Okay. More furnaces. Here, things are coming apart.
There's a lot of furnaces.
Get those back to me. What went out?
Oh. During World War II, it just seemed like one of the things that we never could get enough of when we made propeller hubs
Oh, yeah.
for 3 and 4 bladed propellers.
Huh,
And that's what these are,
there's a nest
3
of them.
bladed.
Yeah,
And we just made them all the time.
yeah,
The other thing, one of the other things that we made was it was like a round pot. It was about this big around, like that high,
yeah,
and it was hollow, all
Yeah.
the way through.
yeah.
And that was machined into the part that changes the pitch on the propellers.
Oh, all right.
And we made,
Yeah,
every time they made either 3 or 4, we had to have one of those.
The pitch switcher things, Was all that made out of iron or steel?
Steel, forged steel.
Wasn't,
Very, very good steel.
yeah, okay.
Very, I'm talking about as good a steel as there is, and
Yeah.
hard to forge.
Yeah,
One we was making this pot was called. It was a, deep die with a punch in the top die coming down
okay,
and a small one in the bottom.
yeah,
And you couldn't have a whole lot of draft on the side
yeah,
because it was rather rough steel to machine. and they didn't want to cut off any more than they had to.
Yeah, okay.
So it was pretty ticklish thing to pound that steel down in there and make it come out.
So it didn't get stuck in the die.
Yeah.
Oh,
Any idea how we did it?
no?
Well, you see them swabbing dies.
Oh, sure,
On
yeah.
the presses
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah,
the
with
hammer
die
do the same
compound.
thing,
Yeah.
they swab them, but it wouldn't work here. So we use a little piece of coal, maybe about a piece of coal, about not even bigger than this.
Huh.
Bigger than the thumb.
Yeah.
Just a little piece of coal, throw it down in there, and then pound the steel down in there.
Yeah.
And that would create enough gas.
To push it right out, huh? Kind of squirt it out. Yeah. Interesting.
You see your die swab, that swabbing
Yeah.
valve was a special compound that was made to explode under pressure.
Mm,
It didn't do any good to put the oil on there if it wouldn't explode at the right time to pop it loose.
Yeah.
That's the way it was made.
yeah.
But this being so deep, you couldn't get anything that would stay long enough to get down there and
Mhm.
create. So we used a little piece of coal. That was an old
Isn't that
time.
interesting?
That was an old time.
Somebody knew
Forge.
that, huh?
Well, Hart was the first superintendent here, the Forge Plant.
Mhm.
He was an old Forge man, and he put Forge plants up all over the world. He just come back from putting a couple of plants up in Russia,
Oh, Dave died.
and he came into this plant. And I used to pick his brain quite a bit,
Because he'd been there and done it.
Well, yeah, he was, and he was the guy that would help you any way there was, but he was the old man on the block, and they all knew
Yeah.
people in, and they didn't want to believe him or anything else. So I'd go talk with him. Shells coming out of heat treat.
Okay, these things in the gun.
That was their 75 millimeter.
75 millimeter shells.
Yeah.
Huh. So
This is, I'm
Maybe
sure that's got to be on the jet blade.
okay. Well, he's got a pretty big billet.
Well, it looks like it. Well, some of the blades.
Oh, all right. Some of them were big. All right.
That long.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
They were thin, very hard and difficult to make.
That's knuckles back there,
Yeah.
bud.
Yeah. Knuckles.
Here we got a bunch of guys somewhere.
Well, that's Ike Crawley.
Okay,
That guy there's Kenny Smitman.
starting from the left. Yeah. Who's this guy here? Shaking hands. You recognize that guy?
I can't think of his name. He was probably graduate that I hired.
Okay.
He no longer works there.
Okay. Oh, I know who that is. Vic White.
Yeah.
Yeah. White shirt.
That's Tom Grosby.
Okay.
I don't know who this is.
Yeah, I don't recognize the side of that head either.
Kenny Smitman retired.
All right. That was his retirement. Oh yeah, he's got a couple of golf clubs. He's gonna go out and play golf.
Well, he owned a golf course. He
Okay.
had a farm, he built it into a golf course, he got the golf course going, so he said goodbye.
All right. The guy with the dog.
Oh boy. Those are the twins. Inspectors. The heck are their names? Bird would know.
Okay. We'll catch Howard with that.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's Jerry Hankinson.
Okay.
Name. See, that guy looks familiar, but I can't come up with his name. Who that is back there?
This must have had something to do with pinions. That looks like an actual pinion sitting down there.
Yeah,
A chrome plated one or something.
It is.
Uh-huh.
boy holding the dog, I think, is this fella right here.
Oh, yeah, let's look at the code. Yeah, it's the same code. Uh-huh,
And
yeah.
he, can't think of his name.
Whatever you guys are doing, you look like you're having fun at it.
Well, the story behind this picture is that this fella, he
Okay,
had a saying, he would walk around the plant and he'd say, come on, dog, come on, dog.
as if you had one behind you or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Always, for years.
Uh-huh.
He never had a dog in his life.
I'll be darned.
So when he retired, we decided we'd give him a dog. So
That was
we went down to the dog pond, got a dog and give it to him.
So that was the occasion.
And he kept that dang dog for
Did he?
quite a while. I don't know how long, but
Yeah.
I knew that.
Oh, that's neat. So that explains it then. Well, now here's another bunch of guys standing in front of
You've seen this picture once.
Okay, that was over here, all right.
This is Jerry Hankinson, and that was his boss that worked in the dye room.
Okay,
This
that's
is
Judd
Forge.
Cordis.
Who the heck is that?
Got
Wayne's
that
time
face.
cap.
Is it? Yeah, I was gonna say that face is very
And
familiar.
there's that fella.
Mhm.
Can't think of his name.
Okay,
There's
you, Lou.
That's me. That's Dave Slee, and he's giving a bond. This guy won quite a large suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
That's Elmer
Elmer
Corbin.
Corbin. Uh-huh.
Dave Slee died of cancer.
Mhm.
Boy, he was a teacher of girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something you can't do today.
Yeah.
That guy only had an 8th grade education.
Tough. Yeah. Yeah.
He had an 8th grade education. I went down to him one day and said, Dave, how'd you like to be a foreman? He said, holy cow, I only have an 8th grade education. I said, well, maybe so, but I think you know the job and know what to do. And I'd like to send you to school. So I signed to school. He was really a good supervisor.
Good choice. Good choice. Okay, here's a big mob scene again. Is that another one I should try with Howard or?
Oh, that's Louis called.
Yeah, I recognize Louis. I'll let you say today.
I think he worked for Louis.
Uh-huh.
That little guy had more fun with him. These guys all working on the heat treat. This guy here, guys. Mike Gross.
Which one is he? Guy with the dark shirt on the left side, okay.
Well, this guy is a foreman. I know him real well.
Mhm.
I can't think of his name. I think that's John Pennington, but I'm not sure. I think it is right there.
Second guy from the left. Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to
Okay.
try Howard.
I'll try Howard. Howard may do us all a good job. If I get all those names, I'll write them on the back for you. Okay, here's a threesome. That looks like you and what is that? Davy?
Davy?
Is that Davy?
Frank Davy?
Yeah, I think it is Davy.
Yeah. Frank Davy. And
Somebody's getting something.
yeah, he's getting retirement for what?
Okay, all right. There's a mess of folks in the cafeteria. Oh, let's see. Who was this gal?
Trying to think of her name.
Schneider? No, not Dorothy Schneider. Darn.
Rudy Oppenheimer.
Yeah, this is Don Heltonen, I think, right here.
Yeah.
And it looks like what a
I think Howard could help you out
yeah,
there.
that's a more modern one. Here's a bunch of guys getting some watches and things again.
They'd have a little group from there.
Yeah. See, and there's you and Drosty and Pete Shearer.
Here's another retirement.
Somebody got a recorder, a tape player, or I mean a record player.
Let's see if I can. That's real heavy.
Oh, wait a minute, which one's real heavy? This heavy set guy here? Okay, right. Front row. Louis Culp is here. I recognize him. He's the only one I recognize.
Louis Culp.
Guy with the suit.
That's one of his foremen. That's one of his foremen. Real heavy was one of his foremen.
Yeah.
There ought to be a couple others in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Don't.
No, these three guys were foremen in a clean and fish.
All right.
That's Howard Ware back there.
Oh, yes. I remember how to. And,
We seen that.
okay.
This was a small picture here.
Right.
That's George Sanborn, Ray Nunn,
Okay.
Barrett. Frank Barrett.
Okay.
That's me. That's Elmer Miller.
All right.
He retired.
He's the guy that's retired.
Yeah.
Okay.
He came from Buick.
Oh, did he? Uh-huh.
This was.
Must be another one. See, he's got something sitting in front of him.
He got some things here.
Yeah.
There's Ray Nunn back there, and that's Kirby Roll there.
Okay, for the
That's
window.
me
That's you
there.
at the far left. Yeah.
That's Les Davison, I think.
Oh, okay. I remember less. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And these guys are hammermen. They're on the hammer show.
Okay. Oh, God. Here's a real mob scene.
Yeah, well, you get.
Okay. Don't find it.
Well, that's an old picture too. That's Vic Perry's right there.
Right in the middle of with the no coat and a white shirt. Mm-hmm.
That's Les Davison over
On the
there.
far right, yeah.
And the suit coat on him.
Yeah. Was taken in 57 or thereabouts, but that's a 57 sitting back there. Okay. There's a small group. There's Les Davidson again, isn't it? That,
Yeah, that's Les
Okay.
Davison.
yeah.
She used to work down the lab.
Okay.
That's real heavy there.
Marla.
Which I could see, but I can't see.
We're doing great, bud.
That's Phillipson, Dick Phillipson.
Okay.
Real heavy. That's Jim's brother.
Okay.
Kenny Smithman,
Okay, is this guy in the back or the
No.
guy in the front?
the guy in the back. The guy I can't think of his
Yeah,
name.
okay, that's all right.
Kenny Smithman.
Okay, dark shirt. Then the gal.
Can't think of her name.
Mhm.
She was an old lady. Finally got married. I was real happy for her. Spending camp.
Behind last, okay.
Tom Lockerbie. That was one of those names back there.
All right, that's this shorter guy in.
Jim. No, he was in the lab.
Okay, who's the tall guy standing in the back? Right here, this guy looks,
Trying to think that I
that guy
can't.
looks familiar too. There,
That's Barney Hunt standing there.
with a hat on.
No,
Has he got a hat on? Oh, it's just a little shine over his head, okay, yeah.
but I can't think of who that guy is. Louis Culp, and that's our Chinkle in there.
Okay.
That Ruth Cooper right there. Did you know her?
Yes, I knew Ruth. Uh, it just doesn't, the name and the face don't go together. It might be, but it just not as you know, I think you're right. I think that is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, the
yeah,
other
yeah.
two girls, the other three girls worked in accounting for John Niehaus.
All right.
And Catherine worked for me.
This is the gal on the right-hand side?
Yeah, she's got the movie camera and she was leaving the plant to get married. And Milton and I are behind him. And so that would be Kirby Roll, John Piddington.
There's another gal.
Yeah, she worked in the accounting too. And back there, there's Frank Barrett.
With the striped shirt.
Ashley Gilbert.
There's the striped shirt guy.
Early on. So, right on.
The back.
Look like being both, but I was my foreman.
Yeah, that's pretty
He
good.
went on vacation. When he went on vacation, I went in the hospital I went to work
That's Elmer.
that morning,
Yeah.
Saturday morning. He left to go on vacation. My back was killing me. I went to the car. I stood there debating whether I'd go to walk 11 miles home or I'd really get in that car and try to go home. Instead, I went to the doctor and from there to the hospital. Well, I went from there and he says, "You got to go in the hospital now."
Uh-oh.
I said, "I'll go home and tell my wife," because she was taking care of my granddaughter.
Oh, yeah.
When I got home, she told me they'd been in an accident.
Oh, no.
So they,
Oh, God.
and I was in the hospital for a month. With Jack Gann and Mike Roach, a couple guys down there. Well, that's what they. That's me, Pete Shear, Art Schinkel. Who the other guy is? Ace. This is Ike Crawley.
The guy with the hat.
And his name is. Well,
Okay.
he's a foreman, I guess.
Okay. Not normal. No.
One of those safety matters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. You hung those around on a regular basis.
Well, we had a campaign going on,
Yeah.
and that tells about it in here.
Okay.
And that little picture
Yeah.
you're seeing back there was the winners of this campaign.
Oh, all right. Okay. Frank Brainerd or Don Brainerd. Yeah.
John Pennington, Charlie Alling.
Okay.
This is Emil Zern.
On the far right. Okay. White shirt.
Now the rest of them I don't know.
All right.
Now that's kind of an interesting little thing.
Oh.
Art line.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
One of the artist workers.
An ancient outboard motor. Huh. Interesting. Uh-huh. Yeah. Bunch of guys standing around the marble board.
You look at them.
Huh. They look like a bunch of Japanese guys.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you.
2-3 weeks.
Bill Mounts is standing there with a pointer. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What was the occasion for that? 57 back here, so it must have been in 57.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, about right. They came in the plant and they stayed idle 2 weeks or 3 weeks or anyway for a long time. And they were right out in the plant. They just were out there every day, learning everything they can learn.
And I took it back and you see what they did to us.
Yeah. I think this is Kirby Roll's retirement.
Okay. Is this Kirby standing?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That isn't Bill Mahoney, is it sitting there?
It could be.
That's you, and then Elmer, and then I don't recognize the side of this guy.
Looks like Les to me, but
All
I'm
right.
not sure. And this is George Samron.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Lloyd Pierce,
Pierce,
looks like.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Retirement.
Yeah. That's that Kirby, that's his, he got a dollar bill for something. Must have been the first dollar he did.
Yeah.
Some darn
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Oops, one in the line.
Well, this do with the Forge Plant, except that this fella father.
Oh, yeah.
National President.
Okay.
And they used to send a plane up and myself and Elmer and that's Howard Cousins. He was a salesman.
Okay. Yeah.
This was his wife and his mother, and this was Wiley Beeman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they'd fly us down to Catawba Island. Had a big yacht club, motel, and we'd stay there.
And enjoy life.
Next day, we'd go out on that boat
Mm-hmm.
and fish for perch, and usually catch a great big mess of perch. Then the next day, he had on Sunday morning, we'd get up and have a big breakfast
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They put cruise
Wow.
around out on Lake Erie with
Yeah.
till about 3:34, and then get in the plane and fly home.
How come these all look familiar? Now, that's one we saw
Yeah,
that one
that
somewhere.
Up in the front.
Yeah,
first one.
okay. And this one is the same.
No, this one here,
Or is that a
is-
different one?
this is broke out like groups.
Don't say. It's cloth. Oh. That's all right.
See, that is,
Gosh, making a mess out of it here.
corduroy, right?
Oh, yeah, let me just shut it off for a minute.
This is two cars, Steve.
Okay, the line allowed.
George Samron,
Yep.
Charlie Alling,
Mm-hmm.
Vic Berry, me, Joe Schaefer,
Yeah.
Art Schinkel, Ralph McNett.
Okay. Boy, oh boy, there's a big meeting or something.
Yeah, I can't tell you what it was right now. Don Brenner, Elmer, Houghton, Beecher, Damon, myself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we were getting ready to award prizes for the safety campaign.
Oh, yes, okay,
Here we are on the boat, ready to go out in Lake Erie perch fishing.
okay. That's with your national guy?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want to hang that up there, but
Yeah. It's okay, just leave it in, don't take it out. There's quite a bunch of guys.
yeah,
There's Judd. This guy is that Wayne Peak? He's a fire protection guy. I think it
his
is.
name was Miller.
Okay.
His first name, that can be back there.
This guy is Dale Hoffman, I think, on the far right-hand side. He was a fire guy, a fire protection guy too.
He was on plant protection too.
Hmm.
Fire.
Fire brigade or
Yeah.
something? Uh-huh. Okay. that one looks like it.
That guy with the dirty coveralls on, his
Yeah.
name was Ace Stewart.
He must have been a crank guy.
He was a die repairman.
Oh,
He was the
okay.
best die repairman that I ever knew.
Huh.
A lot of guys here, but I think Howard could help you
All
more
right.
than I could.
That looks like a reasonably old one, Bud. No date.
Yeah, this is taken up in the cafeteria.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
There's my
your mark of excellence. Just leave that in there. It won't get lost after. $59. Yeah, your friend.
Shut that off.
Okay. So the team has a write-up of, was that when you first, no, that wasn't, was the date on that? 59, so that wasn't when you obviously first came. So.
Alan.
Another retirement?
Yeah,
Or is that, well, it's a, yeah, it's a retirement, isn't it? Because you're giving her a watch or something.
I'm sure that's what his name is. Howard would really know.
All right.
It's a relative.
Yeah.
He was a burner operator.
Okay.
And a burner operator don't sound like much of a job. I never got without that guy. He gave us out more damn trouble. And at least I could think of what his name was.
Well, we've seen him before, someplace else.
My brother.
See that? We've seen that before.
He was another.
Boy, look at the bonds. Yeah. Did we see that one? Yeah, we saw that too. That's a duplicate of that one just a moment ago. Oh, boy. That's a real great bunch of stuff, Bob. I'm glad you.
I got one more.
Do
You
ya?
just stay right
Okay,
here.
I just took this off. So you back up again. Now you went to work at the Forge Plant
I went to work Forge Plant 1940. December 23rd, 1940. About 3 days before this, I came from Flint over to Lansing and put an application in. Cart Julian was the labor relations man at the time. And, when I took my application in, he read it and or tried to. And he made some remark about, well, it took more than just knowing somebody to get a job.
Hmm.
And I said to him, look, I said, all you got to do is show me the job, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And I'll give you 8 hours every day. He said, well, if there's anything that opens up, it'll be 2 or 3 weeks. 2 days later, I had the report. And I went in the labor relations department, and the clerk got a hold of me and says, we got you all ready to go. You go out and your foreman's John Scott. And you go to work. So I went to work, 68 cents an hour.
68 cents. I'll eat that.
Well, that was a lot of money.
Sure.
That was a lot of money to me at that time. I'd been on the farm and my dad had sold the farm, so I got over a job. I had a couple of gas stations I'd been running, and that was a starved to death work. So 68 cents an hour was pretty good money.
Sure.
I worked at Oh, hanging motors and setting equipment and everything else.
What was where then, Bud? What was where in the plant at that time?
Well, in the plan at that time, they were putting the upsetters in,
Okay,
and they were putting shell machining in,
all right.
and they were putting the maintenance department in. It was down in
This is the
201.
201 and
Yeah.
2 in that
Yeah.
area. Uh-huh.
They had a big sidearm planer come in. It went down in the maintenance department.
Yeah.
Now, we were a well-equipped group of millwrights. You had, I think, about 4 old railroad jacks and a lot of rollers and a lot of pry bars and a large number of 1/4 inch cold roll strips about 1.5 or 2 inches wide. And what we would do in a lot of cases is move this equipment is just we jack it up and get it on rollers if we could. If we couldn't, we jack her up and put these slips under strips of steel under them and oil them up and use pry bars.
Just to inch it along.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We took that big planer bed off the flat car or down the aisles around down to her pit and jacked her down into a pit. We had one, I think it was a gas powered truck, but big.
Mm-hmm.
And we rigged a I-beam on it in order to use it to lift up the column and set it. And we used it to lift up the sidearm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and put it on.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it was just plain old
Mm-hmm.
sweat and muscles.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bud, what was the plant prior to you arriving? What was it?
It was an old foundry.
Was
There
it?
had been an old foundry there.
All right.
And when I went in, there was nothing. The old foundry was gone.
All right.
There was a few pits been dug. They were getting ready. I think when I went there, they were setting
Mm-hmm.
a couple of 6-inch upsetters, but these were done by contractors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was some 4-inch, 1 or 2 4-inch upsetters come in on a 75 millimeter shell.
All right. But we already had government contracts at that point in time.
Right.
Apparently.
Right. They were setting up to make shells.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in 40.
Yeah.
The war wasn't declared to December 7th of 41.
Right. Was the foundry, Bud, do you know what, had that been out of business for a long time or?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay. Right.
Somebody around there.
Good luck we can find that out.
We had it was good working there.
Yeah.
And I liked working. I worked with a millwright. I wish I could remember his name, but I can't remember his name. Nobody else liked to work with him. The reason being is that you'd walk in the morning, if you'd say good morning, he more than likely would.
Yeah. What's good about it?
But he wouldn't steal, and he wouldn't talk all day when he would like that.
Yeah.
If he said good morning, why he'd talk.
Yeah.
I thought he was wonderful to work with. We'd go out if we were going to put a motor up on a press.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to put it up there, get it lined up, set where it was, mark the holes, drill the holes, tap the holes, and then put the belts and everything on, put the motor on. And if you're gonna hang one on the ram, you had to do the same thing.
Mhm.
Whatever it was we were gonna do, go out and look at it. And he started to talk about what we had to do, how we were gonna do it, and anything. If I had any questions, that's the questions he'd tell.
Mhm.
But you better remember, because he wouldn't tell you again.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And if you remembered, that was fine.
Yeah.
And if he wanted a certain rank, he expected you to hand it to him, not have to ask for it.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And as long as you did it, it's fine.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I worked with him from about mid-March.
Mhm.
And I went on production.
Okay.
I had to have more money.
All right.
And production was just started.
Yeah. Now, at that time, we only had the south row of buildings, didn't we? The 201, 202, that sort of stuff.
203.
4, maybe, yeah. But 206 and 207
They
and
weren't there.
208, none of those were there.
See, they weren't started until 43, 44.
All right.
See, the upsetter presses were in 201, 202, 203,
All right.
204 with a hammer shop, wasn't it? I think.
204 was that big high building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the hammer shop.
Yeah. Okay.
And 205 was a shell machining.
All right.
If I remember right.
Okay.
And they were setting some hammers up at this time,
Mm-hmm.
starting to. They were going to make cranks
Okay.
there. The upsetters were being put in to make shells, shell machining. The presses were an entirely new thing.
All right.
Nobody knew beans about them.
Brand new process.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They had decided that they were going to buy one. And they had bought it and set it up someplace over at the main plant and tried to diddle with it a little bit and learn something about it. And then they moved it over, they bought a couple more. And we got the job of making caps. 25mm detonator things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. In March, I went on production, went on the shears, working on the shears. And they were starting to cut steel for 105mm shells. And they cut that billet for weight for 2 shells.
Mm-hmm.
And it weighed 40 pounds, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, they were supposed to come up a conveyor, but the conveyor wasn't running, but they needed the steel, so they cut it off and they dropped down on the conveyor down in that pit about 8-10 inches in the floor, and you'd have to bend over and pick those billets up and bring them around and put them on a rack.
Mm.
You know, I did that for, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. One day, the shearer was down for something, and I walked over to where they were trying to forge some shells. And they were having a real time of it. I was standing there watching the guy, and I don't know, I said something. I don't remember what it was I said. And the guy turned around to me and said, "What'd you say?" And I don't know what I said to him. I don't remember. But anyway, that was Joe Hartman, superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew him from him being out in the plant when we were doing repair work. He'd always come by, we'd stop and talk with us. The fellow I was working with and we got done a little bit early, and the boss said, "Get out of sight." So we went down. They had those big 310, 301s, I guess they were, big bliss presses. The top come off was sitting there on the floor. We climbed inside that top, out of sight. We sat in there smoking. All of a sudden, boy, we come out of there. And Joe Hartman went by there. He picked up a 20-pound sled and took it around behind him and hauled off and bailed that thing.
It sounded like a bell.
So ring your teeth. Well, Anyway, he turned around to me and he says, you think you could run that? I says, you mean run the machine? I said, well, I'm not sure. I said, I watched him a few times. I don't think there's that much to it. I think I can do it. So he grabbed my arm, took me in through the conveyor and tapped the operator on the shoulder and says, they got to run one. So I made a shell.
You did.
Yeah.
It worked.
But I'll tell you, you really get a surprise when you grab all those tongs and that thing has got 40 pounds sticking out on the end of that tong, even though you got a counterbalance.
Yeah.
Well, that counterbalance doesn't really hold it. It'll just drop right down on your seat.
Yeah.
But I got it down through the dies, all right.
Uh-huh.
I made a shell.
What did they say to that?
He said, you did real good. And I says, I don't know. I don't know. He says, okay. He says, I want you to stand here and every 15, 20 minutes you go in there and run. That's all I want you to do. Every 15 or 20 minutes, step in there and run one. If you get tired, quit or you smash a die up.
Okay. This is a recording of Irving L. Bud Miller at Bud's home in Cape Coral, Florida, made on January 19th, 1989 by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center. This is tape number 2 of 3 tapes. Okay.
Every day I keep trying to run. When I go in, I keep trying to run more pieces. And it was coming fairly easy for me to do it. Because, you know, I was young and healthy and
Good and strong.
yeah.
Yeah.
And about 3 days of being a helper, he came out with the foreman and says, you're going on the midnight shift as an operator.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't crazy about midnight shift, but you know, it just I'm married, I had a child, I was in debt, anything to get more money, you know, what I wanted. So I went on the midnight shift and started to run shells, and they were coming better, and it was getting so that, you know, we worked 8 hours.
Was that 3 shifts, Bud?
3 shifts.
Right around the clock.
Yeah, we worked 8 hours. You had 20 minutes off for lunch, and you were on relief. They come around and relieved you. So I think production, if I remember, was 512, 105 millimeter shells that we had to run in 8 hours. The fellows that worked on afternoons on the same machine that I did, I can't remember his name. He was an old upsetter. He came from one of the forge plants there, Lansing, over there, and he was good. I'd try my darndest to beat him every month, and I'd beat him sometimes, but most of the time he was beating me, and I couldn't figure it out. One day I went in when his shift started, Tony. I went down on the floor, but I didn't go where he could see me, and I watched him, what he was doing, because he had to be doing something that I didn't know how to do. I had to find out.
So,
Well, I'd seen his long-handled hammer. I never could figure out what it was for. You know, as the dies come together like this, the radius is on the bottom of the dies, they bang, 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 and they pound in a little bit, and you'll start getting a little pinch on the shell.
A little flash sticking around.
That was a no-no. So you'd have to stop and have it ground. The only thing is you can grind it with a hammer. You can bing, 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 bing.
Okay.
You get so good, you can put a good radius on there with a hammer. Bing, 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 you know, in between.
Yeah. So that's what he was doing. He was being his own die man.
and I became blind.
And then did it work?
Oh, we raced every month, We were 1-2, either year or every month. I only had one heater, one trimmer that ever give me any trouble. Usually if a person come down at the end of about 4 hours, he was either going to stay or he wasn't going to stay. The other don't have. And we are going to get production every day. I don't care if we had to run to 10 minutes past our time. We were going to get production if we could, and we did. And the heater and the trimmer, they had to go along with it. They were there. You know, there'd be maybe 3-4 days out of the month that we didn't make production on time, maybe usually ahead of time, so that we'd have our showers taken by the time we could leave home. So they kind of like that too.
Yeah. How big a machine were you working on, Bud?
6-inch.
6-inch. That was that the biggest machine you had in the plant?
It's the biggest machine that we had at the time.
What did you wear for clothes?
Okay, back in those days, we had 110 volt fan. We were probably the first forge plant to put many fans in the plant. But they did. They furnished one fan for the heater and the operator, and you know the induction furnaces went down, and then they turned 4 like this and 2 over here, and it set over there, which was quite a ways away from me. And it blew.
Sort of.
You know, they were big. They were about that big.
Those 3-footers.
About that big.
Okay, all right.
They were on a pedestal. Then the trimmer had one, and I wore 100% long john underwear, woolen underwear.
Wool? Wow.
And everybody in the plant at that time did.
Hot, wasn't it?
No, I wore overall pants, and then I'd buy an underwear shirt, you know, top. That was quite heavy. Hanes. A heavy shirt. It was ribbed.
Okay.
And I bought that to wear so that because my woolen underwear cost $11 a suit, and that was a lot of money. I'll tell you that. You know? And this would wear because you was rubbing up against the machine with this arm. Every week you'd go in, or every time you changed your clothing, which was like twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. I'd go down to the rag storage place and I'd get a big piece of rag, preferably a piece of carpet if I could find where to rub, and for my shoulder.
All right.
Back here because of the heat.
Okay.
Hat.
Hard hat?
No, not then. We didn't.
All right.
Safety shoes though.
Safety shoes. How about glasses?
Oh yeah, safety glasses.
Did anybody ever get did you ever get touched with hot iron? What did it do to the clothes? Didn't it catch it on fire or something?
Yeah, well, you know, you wore hot meal gloves that were treated so that they were flame resistant.
Okay.
You know, you get a pair of hot meal gloves and the fuzz on them will burn a little bit, but you know, they won't really take off. You'd take a pair of hot meal gloves every day.
It would. You'd go right through a pair.
You know, they wouldn't wear out, but they get soaked with oil to the point that you couldn't use them. You know, you couldn't grip them well enough. And I used to buy them. We used to have to buy our own, and I used to go out to South Washington and get my gloves and I get a dozen or 2 dozen pair at a time.
That's that right. The plant did not provide you with any of that. No coveralls. No nothing. Okay.
Not then.
Yeah,
Wasn't even union plant.
yeah, all right. And that was kind of the mode of dress that everybody in the forge plant did, Bud?
Yeah,
At that
and the
time?
hammer shop.
Mhm.
Yeah, most everybody. Some people, some of the younger people coming in, they never had wool underwear on. They just couldn't
Yeah,
take it. But I'll tell you, it was hot.
I can imagine. Yeah,
And there were no fans like today, or
yeah,
anything. When you take a new suit of, clean clothes in, you got a dry suit of woolen underwear to put on. You put that on, and God, would that be hot?
yeah.
So a lot of times I'd take my woolen underwear and I'd take them over to the wash station
Mm-hmm.
and I'd turn her on and I'd hold her in there and
Mm.
get her a
Soak
little
it,
wet.
huh?
Well, I wouldn't really soak it, but I'd get her a little wet
Yeah,
and I'd put it on, And then I never had to worry about it because when I took it off, it was wet.
yeah, so,
And,
yeah.
and we had a special room and we'd take them in there and hang them.
Okay.
You'd grab a hold of your nose and run in there and run out.
Babies would stand in the corner, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Mhm.
But when you put them on the next day,
Yeah.
oh God, they'd pull them up and oh, God, cold.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was the evaporation that you get off that wool underwear really worked.
On real hot days, didn't make any difference. It was just hot, 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 hot all the time.
No, we worked there, winter and the summer, and wore
Yeah.
the underwear all the time.
All
It
the
didn't make any
time.
difference if it
Yeah.
was 30 out or 10 out or
Or 100.
90.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And we worked every day.
yeah, yeah.
And then back during the war, you never thought about, it's too hot to work today like they used to
Yeah.
after a while.
Yeah, yeah.
So
We just kept going at
we
it.
just kept going at her
Mhm.
7 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, then after you kept doing that.
I worked at that uh, December 2nd, 1942, which wasn't quite 2 years since I
Mhm.
hired in there. Foreman came out and says, Joe Hartman wants to see you in the office. I says, all right. So I went up to see him. Joe Hartman was about 5'8", maybe. He wore a hat that looked like it was 30 years old and been through 10 grease mills. And he had a mustache and chewed tobacco, and it was well stained. And
Oh, gracious.
he sat there kind of on the edge of his desk, like
Mhm.
this. And he said to me, he says, you ever think about being a supervisor? And I looked at him and I said, well, yeah, I guess I did. Yes, I have. Well, would you like to be a supervisor? Yeah, I guess so. So, okay, the upsetter line's all yours. Go on out there and go to work.
And that was it?
That was it.
That's all you,
That was my whole training.
your whole training program? Wow. Okay.
So I went out there and went to work, and 12 o'clock come, and everybody was headed home, and I got one of the other foremen, and I said, could you quickly tell me how to make out time?
Oh
And
my.
he says, yeah, he said, I'll help you. So I'll tell you what to do and show you the form for one thing and another. So he did. So about 2 o'clock that night, I got out of there.
Oh my God.
But,
Yeah.
nobody,
No
I
instructor.
didn't know,
Yeah.
I didn't know how to
Yeah.
make out a requisition or how to make out a pass or something. You just have to go ask and
Yeah.
find out.
How many guys did you have working with you?
Yeah, I had the whole upsetter. Let's see, there was 10, 11. There's 12 machines at that time, so
Yeah.
they And they had 24, a couple of guy repairmen. Brothers worked for that us then. I think they did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 25
25 or 30 people. Uh-huh. Quite a bunch there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Now, did you have an office at that time, Bud, or where did you do your paperwork?
out on the floor.
Hmm.
Little desk out on the floor.
So one of these little
Thanks.
slopey stand-up desks. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, we could go in the superintendent's office, we needed information or anything. That photograph one I showed you, Catherine Fung was
Mhm.
working.
Mm-hmm.
She hired in and was working there then. And they had a couple of girls in the office.
Where was the front office, so to speak, at that
All
time?
right. You know where you come down the stairs.
Yeah.
If you come down the stairs and you could turn and go out that door.
Yeah. Yeah, the big
Right
door.
over on that side.
Okay. Mhm.
And the office was in there, superintendent's office, and a couple girls, and then there was a door that went out into the building.
Okay. Was the employment office there too and all?
No, the employment office was where it was for a long time. You turn the other way from
All
the
right.
door and
All right.
go in.
Mm-hmm. Sort of up
Conference room
to
down.
the east down there. Yeah. All right. Mm-hmm.
See, the plant manager at that time set that office down there east.
Right in the corner?
Yeah, right in the corner.
Okay. Yeah.
That was eventually tore out of there when the
Yes.
commercial come in.
Yes.
I had that office down there for a long time.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so now you were learning the foreman's trade.
Yeah, I learned a foreman's trade.
How long did that keep on going?
Well, back then, if you were on salary, you didn't get any overtime.
Uh-oh.
You didn't get any overtime pay.
Mm-hmm.
Hourly people got overtime pay, but you didn't on salary.
Yeah.
So I thought I could get a breather because I'd been working for over a year without a day off, and I went on supervisors, and not only was I learning how to do my job, but if it wasn't go to work somebody else, I had to work for somebody else because they weren't getting paid and I was. I was on probation for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I not only learned mine, but a lot of them at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved around. I never had a place I really called home
Mm-hmm.
very long.
Mm-hmm.
Presses were new. They were having a lot of problems with them. The first thing I know, I'm over in the presses. I don't know beans about them. I don't know nothing. I hadn't, I'd seen them go up and down, bang, bang, but I worked on the off shift, like the midnight shift. They didn't run them on the midnight shift or anything. They hadn't been. I just, I couldn't have been dumber. But I went over there anyway. I went over there and we started in, and they, this cap job, boy, they wanted to get it running. That's all there was to it. And I went to work on it. He had a terrible general foreman. And I never got along from the time I met him, which was just shortly after I came to work. And anyway, I just figured that the job had to be done, and I didn't agree that was fine, but I was going to do what I thought was right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went ahead and we were going to try to get production of those machines. And I got with the die room and had them make me some punches So that when I come in with my shift, I had some new punches to put in that machine instead of the old crap that was always left over. And I really worked with the operators on how we were going to swab them or what we were going to use, how much we were going to use,
Mm-hmm.
and especially on the water. And I worked with the lab on checking them to see if there was anything they could, any information they could give me to help them checking these punches so bad. And the first thing you know, we're running 4,800 and 48 caps every night. Bing, 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 just like nothing. In 7 hours and 40 minutes, we knock out 4,848 caps.
Isn't that something?
So Hartman would walk out there and watch one up that conveyor and say, Bud, every one of them is 50 cents profit in their pocket.
Isn't that something? Uh-huh. That's pretty good.
See, that was bid on time and material.
Or cost plus or something, yeah. Uh-huh.
But and they had when I was running, they had about 6 months to go for it. Oh, there was a lot of things on those presses. Every job would come out. First of all, the die designers and the die people were board hammer, small hammer, big hammer, and they different designers, die sinkers, and they sunk the dies like for hammers.
Yeah.
And not for presses.
Because they'd never seen one before.
Well, that's right. You know, this was all right. Some of them were very good when you talk with them, and some of them were like talking to the wall, you know. They wouldn't move. But steel, when you hammer it, moves a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
When you press it, it goes swoosh.
Yeah.
It's just one bone, and that's all. And it's either got to be where it's got to be, or it isn't there, and you're not going to get it. And that's all there is to it. So the dies had to be designed different, especially the blocker dies and the buster dies. And we did a lot of it. I did a lot of it with a die grinder. Right out and take the dies and put them on the floor and just sit down with a die grinder with a grinder and grind them the way I wanted them to be. Put them in and run them and come in the next night and they'd be all welded up and I'd sit down and grind the weld out again. And, you know, we had a job. We made the hub for the big Army truck. We made two of them. One of them was smaller, but this was for the big Army truck. And that hub was, we made it in a 7.5-inch upsetter.
Wow.
In order to make it, we had to set up the die, heat the billet, and put a cone on the billet. Upset a cone on the billet. Then we put these in rungs. When we get enough of them ahead, we take the dies out. Have to change the furnace now because we got a bigger cone and we got to put that so we can get it in there. We had you upset a flange on the end of that and put a hole in. That's what we did. The first operation was to upset a flange about that big, put a hole in there. That hole was for a mandrel. Then we when we got the flanges upset, we built the furnace with holes in it, so we fit it in there and heat it up because we didn't want to heat that flange. Then we'd come over with with just a long bar with on the end it would fit in that hole. Because these darn things weighed about 45, 50 pounds.
Okay.
They stick that in there and they take it over and that mandrel will become part of the die. Then we upset that big eye cup,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the big eye cup on the front wheel
Mhm.
side.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Well, the punch on this thing, you know, it wasn't on that eye cup, it was on the flange. We made a big flange for can we made a flange about that big around.
Wow. 12 inches or so.
Yeah. Can't remember what that part was for. Anyway, it wouldn't fill. Couldn't fill it.
Mm-hmm.
We made this in the same way that we made the eye cup. We had to do it in 2 operations. One day I came in and a fellow by the name of Otto Holtz was my general foreman. And I said to him, Otto, I says, there's no use starting that job, you know. You can't fill them. They aren't worth a name. They fiddle around all the time. We go up the die room and want the punch cut off and they won't cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what I'd like to do is grind a 1/4 inch out of that punch. He said, okay, get the punch out. I'll go get a couple grinders and I'll help you. So we went and got a couple of grinders and come back. We had this damn punch that big around. We had her setting up on a vise on a bench. I took a rubber wheel. We went around there and very carefully marked a 1/4 inch on the scale, ground and
Mm-hmm.
knocked down in there that deep all around. Then we just took the big wheels and started grinding until we
You got to that.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that contour.
Mm-hmm.
We were working how many hours? He'd come in at 3:30 and maybe there in the morning when they come home. Come in. We were working all the hours the guys would work.
Mm-hmm.
That night, I talked them into staying until they come in at 7 o'clock.
Wow.
And we were making flanges like you couldn't believe.
And Dad do that, cutting that baby off.
This is
Interesting. Interesting.
But we, you know, we had a lot of problems, but really most of the people would work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After the war was over, and we went into automobile production, we ran into the same kind of problems again on knuckles and rods. Everything is that they were designing for hammers instead of presses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess the worst thing that I remember about it was that the day shift would run all day long, make stuff, and you know, at least half of it or better were no good.
Mm.
And
Why would they do that? Just trying to make quantity, right?
they want pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I never figured out. We had made steering knuckles, you know, the old steering knuckle with the ears on it.
Yeah.
The ears wouldn't fill.
Yeah.
And we'll weld them. We'll weld them. Well, I'm no metallurgist, but you know, working with parts like that, I got so that every time I go by the lab, I stop in down there and I talk with the fellows about it, you know, and they were checking one thing another, and I'd ask them about different questions, one thing another. I knew, you know, knuckle being a safety item, they just not going to allow you to weld on it. That's all. There's no way. And I tell them, we'll weld it. You know, the steel yard, we had bays of.
Just piled up,
Yeah,
huh?
piled up.
Gracious.
I'd go in there and I'd get the die welder over, the die welder would come over, and I'd have the dies out, I'd have him weld them up. Get the die repairman, go in there and we'd grind down the radiuses we want, put the job down in there. I can get a back in and take me about maybe 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours. Really. When I start up, I'd run 4 hours right solid and it'd make 14 would fill right up. But that welder be starting to weld or wear by the time they come in, instead of going in and put a little more weld in there, they go in there and grind it all out.
Oh, gee.
Well, the next night I'd come in and
Do it all?
do it all over again. I couldn't convince the boss that's what you had to do, had to be done. And finally the big boss came down. Duke Hardesty was my boss at the time, he really raised Cain with me for not producing. I said, well, what I produce is good. I don't produce what you produce on the base. That's all it is. So I told him, you want to go down and look? You won't find my stamp on any of those that are not filled. He said, well, we never can find your stamp anyway. I said, well, it's on every one. You just don't know where to look. That's all. I don't put it where it says we put it on the blueprint. He went down and looked. Well, anyway, about 2 days later, the big boss came downstairs, wanted to know how come I could run knuckles and they couldn't on days. I said, I showed him what you had to do. We were doing it. Showed him what I had to do. That's what you got to do. So the next day he sent the fellow, I said, Vic Perry.
Okay. Sent Vic Perry somewhere.
Yeah, I sent Vic Perry up to Saginaw. And they were running steering gear, were running some similar thing. And he came back and they were doing. This is the way they were making their blockers when they had to get in. So they changed them. From that point on, well, we had some changes in supervision too at that time. And then on, it was easier to get dies changed.
People had figured out that we really knew what we were doing.
Well,
At least
yeah,
a little bit.
I wasn't any die man. I don't ever pretend to be, but there was times when, I figured, well, this is what has to be done. And we just go in there and do it and work. And eventually they got it on a print. And then eventually they got so in design, they started designing it this way. Best die man that in the country, where I'm concerned, and a lot of other people are concerned, is Howard Gossett. He really knew dies. But it's not only that, he understood operate.
Yes, right. That's half the fight too.
Well, I worked on the presses and I worked on the upsetter and back and forth.
Yeah.
I took all the vacation rotation.
Yeah. Did we make a landing gear part by any chance? Remember a landing gear part?
Yeah.
What was that?
For the B-24, 25 bombers.
Okay.
We made the landing gear part.
Yeah.
We made the tail wheel parts for Navy planes.
All right.
We made the hinges for naval planes, aircraft carrier planes.
All out of steel. This is all steel stuff.
Steel, yeah. Stuff so. I had to heat it so carefully, handle it like eggs. So, you think you were, well, it wasn't as bad as jet blades, but
yeah. You had mentioned some hubs, even.
Aircraft, the
propeller hubs.
And the shifting mechanism for feathering the pitch of the part. He made tank parts. We made the that can't remember what they called it. The chain.
Okay,
chain.
yeah, uh-huh, yeah.
I made Pontiac made a cannon, and I made a number of parts for that cannon.
Mm-hmm,
Forgings for it.
mm-hmm. The Forge Plant negotiate their own contracts, or was that done through the Oldsmobile bunch?
No. See, when I went to work there, that was General Motors Forge.
Okay, not Oldsmobile.
No, not Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
The only thing at Oldsmobile, we got our checks from Oldsmobile
Mm-hmm,
because they had a con crawler.
mm-hmm.
We had our own, trying to say, I don't know if he was there back in the war. I don't remember because I wasn't that familiar with
Yeah,
the people
sure.
up there.
Oh,
but
yes. Understand.
we were, see, we were the only plant in General Motors that was a non-captive plant up until the time that the differential came in. Non-captive plant meant that we go outside of the GM Corporation and bid on anything we wanted to bid on.
Okay,
And that's what we did.
uh-huh,
That's how come we were running American Motor Cranks and International Harvester Cranks
mm-hmm,
and making parts for different companies.
mm-hmm. Almost like an independent organization.
We were.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This was what you got when you first started.
Yeah, that's what you had to go through to get there. You had to
Uh-huh.
be fingerprinted and everything else, and that was your badge. And
Yeah,
if you didn't show it when you got to the gate, you didn't get in.
it was used.
No excuse.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
There were a number of times during the war when they patrolled the fences.
Really? What, scare of some kind or some threat of, uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, boy, we were a big producer.
yeah,
We produced 75 millimeter caps. I think it was either 5 or 7 different machine companies.
mm-hmm.
And the way we shipped them in gondola.
Holy gee.
We made them, we had 5 presses running on caps,
Mm-hmm.
3 shifts. They make 4,848 every shift.
Off of each line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Times that by 3 and times
that
that by
by
5.
five more,
A
yeah.
lot of
Yeah,
caps going out.
sure is.
And 105 millimeter shells, we had what, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, eventually 10. So we had 4 upsetters running on them. We make 512 shells every 8 hours, I think it was. And the 75s are, let's see, I think there were 6 machines. I don't remember right offhand. He made seems like it was about 800 or something, but I don't know whether that was right or not.
Mm-hmm. So the tonnage was really going through the plant.
Well, yeah, after the war, there was many times there when we put 1,000,000 tons of forgings on the dock every day. Ship 1,000,000 tons of forgings.
It's a lot of iron. The 2 new buildings or the 3 new buildings that you built during the war, those were all used for some of these parts you mentioned, Bud, the 206, 207, 208, so.
Yeah, they put in those hammer lines. We kept making the propeller hubs and all that stuff, bomber parts and everything else. Also, one or two lines that we used to make shells,
Mm-hmm,
make them in a hammer.
mm-hmm,
And then also in 404, the hammer set there. When they moved the hammers out in that 204 building, we put in some saws, big rotary saws,
mm-hmm.
blades in, because the size of steel we had to cut. We had some, we put more in. We put a big furnace in that run from 206, almost the full length of that building.
Hmm.
And then down at this end of that building and running back towards 206 again. It's what we call it, a drawbench.
What was it?
A drawbench.
A drawbench. Uh-huh.
Now, what we did, we made 155 millimeter shells.
Oh.
The steel came through this pusher furnace.
Mm-hmm.
It would drop off the conveyor. It'd go up the conveyor through a water blast and then come around into a hopper. And fed it into a hydraulic press, upright hydraulic press.
Mm-hmm.
It went in and the billet was, I'll say, partially blocked.
Okay.
But it was a square.
Mm-hmm.
It went in and it made it kind of round.
All right.
Then it kicked off into the drawbench.
Mm-hmm.
The drawbench is a big hydraulic rod with a punch on it, which is the inside diameter of the 155 millimeter shell.
Mm-hmm.
The ring is what it pushes down here, what it's going to push it through.
All right.
So it comes up against it like that and starts pushing it. And it just pushes it and the metal goes back over that punch. And then all of a sudden it comes out.
Squirts through the. Mm-hmm.
And droppers drop down and she backs up, she pulls it off the punch and things on a conveyor and then take it up in the air and to a thick building where they were
So
unloading.
you formed a shell, just so right over the punch and through the die. Uh-huh.
Some drawback.
Yeah. Okay.
Hot extrusion.
Yeah. That the only time we ever used that?
Yeah, that was used to make 155 millimeter shells, and they made that thing run 24 hours a day when it run.
Okay.
When it break down, everybody turn their hair.
Oh yeah, come down and help. Okay.
That all went out when the war was over.
Yeah.
Started to 1950, I got a call. Well, 1950, I was working days, afternoons, midnights. You ask it.
Take your pick, huh?
Yeah, everywhere. I got a call. They wanted to see me in the office about 1:30. It was a little early for me to go in, but anyway, I went in. And they were going to make you night superintendent. Well, I said, that's all right with me. So started in.
Mm-hmm. And you stayed all night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who was the daytime superintendent?
So I think I was working for Duke Hardesty at the time.
Okay, still. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have to remember that our general foreman general superintendent is different than it was over at the main plant.
Yes, understand that. Uh-huh. As I remember, you had several superintendents. Yeah.
Uh,
Back up a notch, but were we making the 6-cylinder and 8-cylinder crankshafts after we got done with the war?
yeah.
We were hammering those out or hammering them out. Mhm.
Making all the knuckles, all the ring gear, pinions, side gears.
We were forging those even though we weren't making axles, were we?
No, but we
Yeah.
forged them all for Pontiac.
We gave them to Pontiac. Okay.
We tried to sell them.
Yeah.
And axle shafts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we made axles for Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
We made a lot of parts. We made parts for Detroit Diesel,
Mm-hmm.
General Motors truck.
Okay.
And we had what we call the form and bend. That was, we made the bumper bars and the stabilizer bars.
Okay. Now, at this point, all of the hammer shop was out in 206, wasn't it? Pretty much. Not 206, 207, excuse me.
What?
207.
Bumper bars?
No, the hammer shop for the
Oh, yeah, the hammer shop was all in
cranks
207,
and the big stuff. Mhm. And the bumper bars were over in maybe 201 or 202?
205.
205, okay. A little
Set
south,
up.
the south, yeah.
Then in there where they eventually put the Korean jet.
Okay.
Did I say that I went on a superintendent in 1950?
Yes,
Night superintendent.
night superintendent,
No,
yeah.
I wasn't night superintendent. I went on as superintendent of the Setter Presses and Foreman Bend
All right.
in 1950.
Okay, so you were a daytime.
Well,
Or
I
did
went
you-
on days.
Yeah, all right.
The first time in
Uh-huh.
a long time.
All right.
Mr. Dakin was there then.
Okay. He was the plant manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
And well, I was superintendent for a couple of days. And he came down through the plant in the afternoon shift. And he stood out there. I looked up. And I've been down, upset her. They have trouble down there.
Yeah.
I was down in there taking a look. He waved at me. I went over. I don't know who the guy was. He introduced me to the. He said, "Believe it or not, this is our superintendent of the presses upsetter in the form of Ben. And he's supposed to be sitting in an office, and here he is on the afternoon shift in the middle of the upsetter. I didn't have a foreman for the afternoon shift.
Yeah.
They give me a job, but I didn't have anybody to
Uh-huh.
replace me.
Yeah,
So I had to finish out the week
yeah.
as a foreman.
Double duty.
No, I didn't go in that.
Yeah.
But he was something else to work for.
Was he? How come?
Well, he had a very, I'll say, peculiar way of getting work done, and he could get it done. You were making a hydromatic gear for hydromatic called, I had a lot of numbers, 887, I ended in 337. That's what we called it. This was a real pistol of a gear to make.
Okay.
And of course, Hydromatic, was going into Pontiacs and Oldsmobiles and Cadillacs.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
We just made shafts and gears for them, but there was, no end to them. Scrap was running fairly high.
Yeah.
And one thing that he wanted done was something done about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just knew, as superintendent, and hadn't been at her too long there, and I was trying to do something about it. I wasn't getting anywhere really. I thought we were moving in the right direction, and eventually we were, but nothing is really showing up.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I don't even maybe been there 2 or 3 weeks. So every week we'd have a meeting, and he'd come down. Day he walked in, and he reaches in his pocket, takes out a whole handful of 50-cent pieces, and he's sitting there and he's flipping them like this, flipping them like this, and flipping them like this. But he said anything, just sitting there looking.
Yep.
Said, every time you make one of them 337 gears, every other one is
Mm-hmm.
down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's down. I picked up a bunch of these. Some of the other guys picked up some. Alex Pratt sat there. He didn't pick any up.
Oh.
He digs and says, Alex, you didn't pick any up. Hell no. If you want to throw them away, why you want them, you can pick them up. He says, I don't want them, but don't you pick any of them up. And any of those other guys that pick some up want them, they can pick them up and they can have them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
He says, if you're that way, you just get bypassed. That's all there is to it. Boy, that shake everybody. But it shook him up away. He made a point that
was a point making exercise. Yeah.
He used to call up and said, they called up and said, you need a certain part. And I said, we've done everything we can. We don't have any right now to shift it. Ship them. It's going to be 8 hours or so. And told him so. All right. Ship them anyway, he said.
Ship them anyway?
That was his favorite thing.
Uh-huh. Even though we don't have them.
Yes.
Right.
But he was a good man to work for. He was a good man to work for.
Mm-hmm. Elmer followed him? Or was there somebody in between there? Where was Darton? Darton was in between.
Right. Okay. Darton was a piece. That's all. I'd known him for a long, long time. And he was, he'd worked at the Forge Plant quite a while before he took that job.
He had worked at your Forge Plant? Yeah. Our Forge Plant? Uh-huh.
Well, I was superintendent of upsetters presses and Thorn Bend. I don't know for how long. It was 5 years, but during that 5 years, Cartersea left. Earl Owes took his job.
Mm-hmm.
And during the time that he was on, I think it would have been about 53. Superintendent of the plant.
The whole plant.
Earl Owes.
Mm-hmm.
And come in afternoon and check out and make sure before I went home at night that everything was set for the day shift to take off. Not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 55, hi Susie. one of my granddaughters.
Okay.
Come here, Susie.
Shut that off. Should I shut it off?
Am I holding you up?
Oh, no, there's just no. It's down in the background a little bit.
Yeah. Ma?
Here we go.
When I was on the night shift, it took me back to about the second year I was a foreman. Oh, third year.
Oh, yeah.
No, no, that isn't right. It took me back to about the second year after the war.
Mm-hmm.
We were running day shift. The afternoon shift was a kind of a skeleton crew. We were having just a terrible time on the presses. They putting them on center, which means that you got a 2,000 pound, 2,000 ton press, and it's straight down,
Stuck.
stuck,
Yeah.
right there.
Mhm.
And there's no way you go to move her unless you
Mhm.
can get her something
Mhm.
out from underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the job. You see the big ram we used to use swing,
Mm-hmm.
drive keys and
Mhm.
things. It weighed something like 7 tons or something.
Oh, my
Like
gracious.
a steel that was suspended neither end
Yeah.
cables. And
Yeah.
a big long cable run up to the crane.
Oh,
What you do, you put 4 or 5 men on that crane, on that ram, and the crane operator would go back away and he'd start forward. You'd hold that till she get up there, you couldn't hold her
Yeah.
anymore, and then you'd run and you'd hit.
like a great big hammer.
That's what it was. We drove keys with it in, and drove keys out with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we used to drive presses off center with.
Mm.
So we'd come in there and there'd be 3, 4 presses on center. And really, we'd start in at 3:30. We'd have to block them up and put a jack in there,
Mhm.
big hydraulic jack, to hold the blocking. And then we'd drive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'd have to get dry ice to try to cool them off so
Mhm.
they'd shrink it down a little,
Mm-hmm.
do everything. And morning after morning, we'd be there when they come to work in the morning. We probably just finishing off. What was so bad about it was that we'd work like the devil all night long, get that line so it would run for the day shift. All set up to run, and no reason why it shouldn't run. Except that the attitude of the people. Or I could put a press on center anytime you wanted to put on. You'd say, go put that press on center, I could put it on center just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they could too. And that's just what they did. They just go along, and then they'd put it on center.
Why was that happening, Bud? Were they all mad or something?
Huh?
Were they all mad about something?
Well, they had a real bad supervisory situation.
Okay.
And it was just bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I went up on nights, like I said, it reminded me of this. I was in the same thing, you know. Now, I don't mind working
Yeah.
or anything like that, but I'm working the afternoon shift. When I get called and told to come to work at 10:30 in the morning, that's cutting my hours kind of short. And
Sure
if it was, like once every couple of weeks would be one thing, but when it was day after day after day,
like no excuse for it.
Figure out manpower. I just couldn't figure this out. But that was the situation, and I couldn't communicate with Harold Olds.
Mhm.
He wouldn't, I don't know why, he was the chief inspector, never had any problems when he in production. I tried to tell him things that had to be done, and he wouldn't communicate with me. We had another fella working there that was bucking him also.
Mhm.
So he had a situation on the floor that was bad, and I'd been trying to make anything bad for him, but I couldn't help him.
Mhm.
He wouldn't listen.
Mhm.
Then Elmer came.
Okay.
Uh, Elmer, I met him, and he'd been down. He'd come down. He'd talk to me about different things.
Mhm.
One thing and another.
Elmer had been in the plant.
Well, he was brought over there. I didn't. When I first met him, I didn't know what he was doing there. They didn't send out a notice to give him any type of title or anything like that. See, we had Tom Darton was up there as plant manager, and Harold Rose was general superintendent,
Mhm.
and I was superintendent, and Kirby Roll was superintendent.
Mhm.
And I had the general foreman, I think. Anyway, Elmer, I'd see him once in a while.
Mhm.
He'd come on in the afternoon and want to talk about something. Fine, I'd talk with him. I'd tell him what I thought, and he'd ask me questions. A lot of times he'd ask me why wasn't something being done. I said, well, Elmer, I can't tell you that. I said, I've talked to him about it and one thing and other things. I don't know why it isn't being done. I'm not here during the daytime. Well, I'm not here
Yeah.
usually, before 10:30, and I was really getting mad about this.
Mhm.
And he called in so early. Uh, so this one day he come down, he started in on me.
Of Irving L. Bud Miller, made at Bud's home in Cape Coral, Florida on January 19th, 1989, by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center. This is tape number 3 of 3 tapes.
And anyway, we were standing out on the driveway between the two steel mills. That's where we met.
Mhm.
And man, he just started to rip me up one side and down the other. Never seen him like this. About 29 press. He says that press could have fall over on somebody. Just sitting there rocking, laughing around. I said, I don't know what bothered you, but I said, that press has been like that for at least 2 months. Better. He said, why don't you do something about it? And I said, I've done everything I can do about it. I've told them, and I've told them, and I've told them. Shut it down and get it fixed. They won't shut it down. And I'm not the boss. I can't shut it down. I was getting mad this time.
Mhm.
Really mad. I said, I don't mind getting read out if something I can do about it, but I can't do anything about this. I don't like this. I walked off. And it wasn't very long after that. I got a call and come up to the office, and I went up to the office, and he said, you got a new job. He said, what do you mean I got a new job? He said, yep. He says, you're going to be day superintendent, and you're going to have the hammer shop and the building 6. I said, okay, that's fine with me. So he said, I'll put out a letter So it'll be in their boxes in the morning. I said, okay. So when I went in the next morning, I had my office was still over there in the corner by Harold Olds. I went in and I talked to Harold. I don't know what's coming off. He says, well, they had me up and talked to me yesterday. He says, I know you're taking over the hammer shop and clean and finish. And I says, yeah, because I don't really understand this. I don't know what's coming off. So I went over and I talked to Kirby and I told him, I said, well, I'm on days now and I got the hammer shop and back in the steel yard, I guess. And he said, so you'll be reporting to me and instead of Harold Olds. Oh, that was all right. I mean, I don't know whether he liked it or not. Or
Yeah, it was a fact.
Any problem there. But, I got the heat treat clean and finish. Now, all the scheduling, the shipping is in your lap.
Yeah.
You get them out. This was the worst mess I ever, I'd have 100,000 old rods and no Cadillac rods.
Oh my Lord.
Or I'd have Olds knuckles and no Pontiac knuckles. They're the other way around. And what would happen is that I guess they're a lot like they are today. Or after, I should say, ratings or the dollar. And they don't want to give any on it. If you got a die in and you run out of parts, but the die is only half wore, you don't want to pull the die out because it's hard to get it going. So I'm going to run another 3 days on this, regardless of whether they got any parts that you can ship or not. And this is what was happening. And if you tell them up here a week ahead of time to change the die, well, they didn't want to do it. They have to change the die, the trimmer, and everything else. They change the die just half the time so you get going. So they run and run and run. And you're all, you go down there hollering like hell. Jesus Christ, I got to heat treat those things. That's 16 hours that I got to clean and finish, and that's another 8 hours before I can even get it put any on the dock. You haven't got any, and they're going to be out in 8 hours. You're still running something else down there.
And they weren't paying any attention.
No. And this just got to be a dogfight. I go down, I sit down, and I talk with them. And I never could figure out whether Vic Perry or somebody out there or whether it was Harold's thinking, but the whole group thought like this. And, I don't know why. The fellas, they were all good fellas, and I liked all of them. And they never done any harm as far as I'm concerned, but they just make it rougher than. Well, anyway, once again, I get a surprising call to come to work. I went in earlier than usual. And Corbin and Tom Darton had went head of purchasing department. Now McCorbin took over in his place. Corbin says, starting this morning, you're superintendent of the whole plant.
Going to solve this problem. I can see.
He said, now don't come tell me you haven't got any parts to ship because they haven't been made. Oh, good old Howard Warback. Yeah. Oh, there's another guy. I'll have to ask Betty Bertweed.
Oh, yes, I remember Bert. Yeah, he was in the office someplace. Yeah.
Bert Weidner. He was smart, dumb. Scheduling, he was the smartest man in Oldsmobile scheduling. Dumb, because he'd call his boss up, the head of the,
Material control, yeah.
Say, well, you dumb son of a bitch, don't you know that you can't build X number of cars and only make X number of rods? That's the way
Yeah. How to win friends.
Bert would, central office would put out a schedule, how many cars you're going to build.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's simple to figure out how many rods, knuckles, gears,
Sure.
everything else you gotta make.
Yeah.
You gotta have a 1 to 8 or whatever it is
Right.
for a car.
Yeah.
So you buy this, and this is supposed to be should be your schedule. And you got to figure in how much
Sure. Yeah.
or what.
Yeah.
But, this is it. You get a schedule from Oldsmobile. They're going to make. They need 100,000 rods. Well, all they needed was like 300,000 or 400,000 rods.
Minor detail.
Minor detail.
Yeah.
If you didn't order steel and you laid people off and everything, all of a sudden, well, after 1 week, everything comes to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm. Then somebody wonders what happened.
Well, I talked with Bert, and he called Howard back in. So I sat down with Howard Warback, and I says, we went over every part, that long sheet we used to have, all the parts produced today, how much steel, how many we produced, how many we produced for the month, and how many had heat treated, how many were clean finished, and put on the dock and shipped. The whole thing on that sheet. We went over and I put a percentage on there. This is the percentage of production that I can make per day. Like I say on cranks, when they were running I can make 90%. Some of the stuff I could only make 85%.
Yeah. Depending on the difficulty of the thing.
Yeah. I put that all on there. Now I want you to schedule. So I got the parts made. I can get them heat treat. I can get them through clean and finish on the dock, ready to ship, so they'll get them in time. So he sat down and started to work. He figured it out. And he scheduled every part. He never said, scheduled every part. I just had a meeting and I said, now there's your schedule. And there's no way in hell you're going to break it. When it says change your die on this date, you better change it right there. Okay. Now, no. What we do is if the die was still running, but we changed dies on the midnight shift, that die would be changed. The job would be changed.
You wouldn't sit there and keep it chunky.
Yes, sir. Yeah. No way. We run right that schedule.
And then did it work okay?
Yeah, stuff just went through like the way business. We had the steel. We made her. Never had any problems. That's all there was to it. Because, they had their schedules out in the hammer shop. He knew the fella in the press upsetter and foreman Ben, he knew what he had to do. Yeah. Everything was scheduled. Every job was scheduled out for him. And Louis had the same schedules. He knew he could look and tell when them parts were coming. And he'd tell these guys, he said, the parts ought to be sitting out there. They're going in the heat treat today. Yeah. Get them ready to go. Get ready to take them. See?
So you kind of made a production line out of the whole thing.
Worked.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
So that was in 1955. I sat there for 25 years.
Doing that, huh?
You know, all that there was, in the Forge plant, they always called us the orphan or something.
Mhm.
We never were much of a part of Oldsmobile, or made to feel like we were part of an Oldsmobile, in a sense.
Mhm.
Still, we had a better working group than any place in Oldsmobile.
Mhm.
Do you remember when Houghton had that oh, program going on, the OD program, something like that?
Yeah.
Then they had a guy from Central Office come down.
Right.
His name Smith.
Was it Smith? I can't
I
remember.
thought it was Bert. So
Oh. I don't remember either.
kind of a gray haired
Yeah,
fellow.
I remember the guy.
Well, Elmer says to me, he says, "You got to go to that program." I don't want to go to that program. They can't tell me anything. And I was being a little angry.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, "You're going to go. I've signed you up and you're going to go." So they met twice a week, go over there and sit for 2 3 hours over there. And I sat there and I listened to this guy talk, and I listened to this guy talk, and I listened to him. And I sat there and I just getting madder and madder and madder. I went back and told him, says, "You know, I don't mind wasting time, but I said I could tell you everything that he said, you know, and I know what he's going to say, but saying it and doing it is two different things. He's saying it, but they don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to hear it because we're doing it. I'm going to say you're going to go anyway." So I went. But the last time I went, because I got asked not to show up again.
Oh.
He going on, and I finally says, "Hey, I want to tell you something. I don't like sitting in this class, and I don't like the way you are talking. Maybe it's all right for these other fellows, but it's not for me because you're talking against me." I says, "I could tell you a lot of things about relationship and working with people, but the best one I want to tell you, I'm going to take you up on something that you just said. So I'm going to take you down on the floor. We're going to leave right from here, and you're going with me. So I'm not going to go to a phone or anything and call ahead and tell anybody anything. You're just going to walk with me. We're going to walk over there, and anybody that you see that you want to talk to about something, we're going to stop, and you go up to the man and ask him questions about something like you just said that they won't give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you that that man will give you the correct answer. He will answer you. He's not afraid. He's going to tell you what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that that's his job to tell you what is happening, not what he thinks you want to hear, but what really is happening.
The truth.
Yeah, he says it won't happen. I says, all you got to do is say you go over there and try her. I'm putting her right on the line to you. He wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
Then Art Smith came, or whoever this guy was. He came down. So we sat down one day and we were talking, and I told Art, I says, you do something for me. He says, yeah. I says, I want you to go down on the floor. You can go any place that I have people working. Talk with the hourly people and talk with the supervisors and one thing and another. Then come back up and tell me if I should be going to school or doing
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
So one day, sat in the office, and Elmer called and said, "Hey, come down here." Whatever his name was, he wants to talk to us. So I went down there, and I sat down, and he said, "Well, Bud, you asked me to do something for you," and he explained to Elmer what I'd asked him to do, and he says, "I want to talk to you now, Mark." I said, "Okay, what do you want to talk about?" He said, "Well, I want to talk to Elmer, really." He said, "Elmer, I'll tell you something." He says, quote, unquote, "just leave it alone. Don't change anything. Leave it alone."
Mhm.
That's all you want.
So it was right. It was working.
Well, you know, the foreman, I talked with the foreman whenever I went down through the plant or anybody, but I was, and the elderly people I communicated with, I had things that I thought should be done. You know, safety wise, we had a safety meeting every month. The foreman had to put it on.
Mhm.
About every 4 or 5 months, maybe I put it on.
Mhm.
But they had to talk for a 5 minute talk, safety talk, for each man, and I really checked on it to see that they did. And the reason I made them do it was so that they could talk to people about safety.
Mhm.
One thing that I constantly stressed was that, you know, you had to wear glasses, helmet,
You're right.
safety shoes, you know, and it was hot and it was miserable, but you couldn't get careless about taking your glasses off or anything else. But people were going to do it. The big thing was on safety is not to walk by that thing, not anything. But if you know more than like you walk by and the guy's got your glasses off and you just reach up here and like touch your glasses and shake your finger at him, man, that impresses him. He put his glasses on and he knows that you told him. And if you come back the next day and he's still doing it and you want to walk up and give him a reprimand or something, he don't holler about it because you've already told him about it. See?
Sure. Yeah.
And this is the kind of the theory that we worked on so that the people knew right where they stood all the time. And you know, they have a right to. We used to get in trouble because I had some ways of operating was the union didn't like very well. And people would keep pushing every now and then. If I put an operator on there. He operating that machine, he better know what the hell is wrong with that machine if there's something goes wrong. If I walk up to him and say, "What's wrong with this machine?" and he says, "I don't know. What the hell do I need you for?"
Mhm.
You know, you're operating it. You should know what's wrong with it. If you know, you better learn. I don't know if you're always going to be right. All I want is some idea of what's wrong with it so I can take it from there.
Sure.
That's one thing that I keep telling the foreman. So when something wrong with the machine, go in there and ask the guy what's wrong. If he don't answer, get right on to him. Put that responsibility right on to him.
Mhm.
The union say that isn't his responsibility.
Mhm. Somebody else to do that job.
Well, you know, there's quick ways around that
Mhm.
because you can go through a plant like that, and then the first thing you know, you can hand out 100 reprimands for little goddamn things, you know, and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just what would happen.
Mhm.
You know, and everything had become quiet.
Mhm. It sure was. Very quick. Mhm.
But all over the years, you know, we'd had problems. But really, people worked very good together. And big retirement parties, you know, holy cow. They'll have a lot of fun. I don't know whether they do that now or not. I don't think so.
Not as much. No, some of that is all that's gone. But you were there when the F-85, like that front suspension stuff came in that we had in the back.
I made that front suspension, welded that
Yeah.
first F-85 suspension down in 201. We
Yeah.
had that down in there where we had the tube job, you know.
Was that a different kind of task? It was different than the Forge Plant had done.
Yeah, it was. And then, you know, it was sheet metal and some machining. We had some problems getting that started. I had, I don't remember who I had down there now.
Claude Basing was down there at one point in time, I know.
Yeah, but I don't know whether he was on the front end or whether he was on I think he was. And Howard Werbeck was down there on the tubes.
Oh yeah, Howdy was there, that's right. Yeah.
He was on the tubes, but I think Claude Basing was down there on the front end. And front end, the front end was before Houghton come over there with a differential, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. That came along a year or so after that went away.
We had some problems on the welders down there. And trying to think of the guy's name. He was a janitor. Well, I went and got a janitor anyway. And took him down there on the well floor. Transferred him down there on the well floor.
Yeah.
And I said, something we're doing wrong. And, you know, I'm going to put you down here working to see if you can get the machines to go.
Okay.
No problem. And it's a matter of watching the tips and being able to file them when they should need it. And about a little work that he knew, being a welder. And we got it going. It really came along. Major problems. Quad basing was, I had him down there and had the foreman. And morning about 8 o'clock, they'd have a meeting in his office down there to decide what was their problem that day or what they were going to handle it. Every morning about 10 to 8, the meeting was going on then, but about 10 to 8, Bob Cook would walk down through there.
Oh my.
And I'd be down there. And I'd say good morning. That'd be it. One morning he stopped. He says, you know, I'd like to know something. And I says, all right. What do you want to know? If I know, I'll tell you. He says, how come quad basing's in there and you're out here? How come you aren't in there? I says, that's simple. He says, it is. How do you figure that? I says, well, I know Claude Basing knows what's going on better than I do. He's a little closer to it. So he's holding the meeting to figure out what it is. When they get all done and they made their decision what they're going to do, then he'll tell me. And if I want anything changed, I'll tell him. If I know it's all set to go. Now he's running the department and I let him run it. That's the way we do things over here. I don't. As long as the men stay within certain guidelines, that's their job. he looked at me and he said, well, you know, we haven't shut you down yet. Even though yesterday I said, I tell you something, don't ever pull that trick on me again. They bought a whole bunch of, you know, we had to put the brake on.
Yeah, the drum.
The drum.
Mm-hmm.
So they bought a whole bunch of drums from Buick. We get them over there, we get all the damn things assembled. We got, I don't know, 3 or 4 boxcars loaded with them. They got a couple of trucks loaded with them, and they rejected their drums. They're all good. And we got to pull those in there, and I had to hold people in there all night, pulling them in there, pulling them drums off, throwing them away, and getting other drums on.
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
What a pain.
Yeah, and then they hollered because we didn't ship on. Had to hold the boxcars up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we got the tube job.
Yep, the tubes and all the rear axle stuff and the gears and all that stuff came along.
Yeah, and they put the tube in and see. They're getting ready to start the tube up. They had that old equipment that was supposed to have been rebuilt over in Plant 3. The lathe.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff wouldn't even run hardly. And then I got a bunch of foremen, or a bunch of people that was supposed to know something about welding and machining from main plant. I don't know if the boss ever called you up and said, no, I want you to ship your 2 good men.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up your sheet and look at it, and you pick them off now.
Right. You don't start at the top.
That's what I got.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that I feel bad about that, I had a fellow by the name of Earl Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know him?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was a colored fellow. He was the first colored supervisor in Oldsmobile.
Mm.
He, back during the war, he hired in there when colored were only allowed to do janitor and window wash. And the law changed that they had the right for seniority.
Mm-hmm.
So his seniority gave him the opportunity to become a press operator.
All right.
So I took him down and I got him, and I had him there and had him doing some jobs to get used to handling tongs and one thing and another until I could put him on there as a press operator. 2 men operated presses on on caps, and they'd work an hour descaling, feeding, and then an hour running the press. He was a nice fellow.
Okay.
But the fellow that I put him with, why, he was kind of closed-minded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your job of descaling, you put the bar in the descaler, pull it out, and you'd feed it through the window into a shear.
Mm-hmm.
You'd push it in against the stop, and he'd cut a piece off as he was finishing a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Then he'd reach in and he'd outright would, and he'd get a hold, and he'd go into the buster, and when he hit it in the buster, he'd shove the piece in again to the shear because he's going into the finisher, and then cut another piece off. And so the operator had to, the guy here couldn't see what was happening, so he had to listen, you know, and move.
Yeah.
Well, I come by, they were having a little trouble there, I know. And I come around, they were running on 25 press, and I come around 26. And I was standing back where they couldn't see me. And I seen him push one through, and he tripped the press, but he didn't pick the bar up. You know, before he tripped the press. Now, the next time he trips the press, why, he's going to come in with a bar. And he did. He smashed two of them together. Now, this used to happen once in a while. But I happened to be standing right there watching her. And this fella charged around the corner and just yelling to beat the devil out of it. You don't know what you're doing. You're following everything up, man. Damn, I'm going to knock the hell out of you.
Gracious.
Well, Earl just backing away. Don't swing at me. Don't swing at me. Unfortunately, the fella didn't know what he was. He took a couple of swings at him. And he just kept pounding in all the time. And finally, Earl just stopped and bang. And he was right over in the goddamn gong. Right? He was 4 years in a row, he was state golden glove. Detroit.
Boy, was that guy surprised.
I hauled him out of the car. Took him down to the office, give them both 7 days off.
Nothing you could do.
Come back. I told him, they said, well, he's going to work right here. But I'll tell you next time, the only guy I'm going to see that's going to be swinging is going to be you. You're going to be out. Earl worked for as an operator for quite a little while. Then he came and asked if he could become a die repairman. Now that's hearing skilled trade now. And I says, yep, we'll see what we can do. I know I got an opening coming up. Nobody applied yet, so you're right. So I made him skilled trade. And as a die repairman, I used him as a helper a lot of times. So when I had the opportunity, this opened up. I wanted to make him a foreman. I wanted to make him a foreman out in the press plant. And I had a fellow out in the press plant that I was going to bring up to the weld job. And Elmer said, no, I don't want to do that. He said, we'll put Earl up there. Well, I told him, I said, man, Earl knows forging presses and everything else. He don't know anything about machining at all.
Wrong place, maybe.
Well, it was. He never really had a chance. Because the pressure got on real hard. He was a new foreman. They started putting the pressure on. The other foremen were older foremen, but they didn't know anymore anyway. They wanted to bring somebody from the main plant. So they transferred him from me over to Houghton in a motor plant. He retired a few years ago from there. He always did a good job. But the foreman I got from the main plant,
but how come, see, we put the differential plant in, the forge plant was all consolidated, what was happening at that point in time? Why did we do that? Forging business was disappearing, or what was the reason?
Well, they wanted a differential plant, first of all.
Okay.
Secondly, they were saying that they had too many square feet per person. It isn't like a motor line, where you got, for every square foot of space, you got a man standing off.
Right.
And I don't know what that had to do. The second thing about it that always really burned me up. I mean, Cadillac, were the worst. Oldsmobile never balked very much about prices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have a time study and you lay down the price and put the profit on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. When you go down to Pontiac, they just, well, I can buy them from this guy cheaper,
Mm.
you know. And I'd argue and argue and argue with Elmer. They can't do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Playing games or something.
yeah,
Mhm.
they can't tell Pontiac to buy their goddamn axles from that guy. You know, just tell him, you buy your axle. We're not going to make you any. He wouldn't do it. If he'd told them, hell, they couldn't make them.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have to jump in and 2 or 3 times a year because they couldn't hold up what they were supposed to make. The same way with Cadillac and
Mhm.
Detroit Forge made knuckles for them. I found out why every now and then I'd have to make more knuckles for him because he wouldn't make any more at that price.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Mm-hmm.
One day I was talking with him and he says, I don't know what's going wrong with you. He said, you give your knuckles away and therefore they want me to give mine away. And I said, I don't give them away. They tell me you're the one that does it. You know, and they just play
Yeah, playing the ends against the middle. Yeah.
And you know, they'd buy it. Then they tell me you're losing money on Pontiac axles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything with how much I charge them. If I had it, they wouldn't have been getting it for that price. But that was one thing.
Okay.
Second thing was that the corporation has Chevrolet Tonawanda, Chevrolet Detroit, and someplace in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
big Forge Plant. And if they were going to do, I couldn't take on much of their business,
Mm-hmm.
but they could take on my business.
They were much bigger, apparently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Chevrolet operates, but you know,
Right.
if they got a chance to get something, they'd take it whether they had any room to put it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get room somewhere.
Right.
So, you know, we had that 6-inch up center set down there just inside of building 202.
Mm-hmm.
Cave shafts
Mm-hmm.
for Agrimatic,
Yeah.
Oldsmobile,
Yeah.
Pontiac. That went to Chevrolet. Agrimatic wanted to put their own in, do their own forging work. Corporation said no. When it went to Chevrolet, we just had a real battle over price on that. And they wanted us to cut the price by 50 or 75 cents a shaft. No way.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't get them anywhere else. So we forged a whole slew of them ahead so that they could move that up there and everything down to Chevrolet.
Mhm.
Chevrolet got it down there and they started up. The end of the first week, they raised the shaft, $1.50 a shaft.
Oh my goodness.
Agrimatic. Agrimatic hit the ceiling. They went central off, go to get an upset or everything else. They just get turned down because central office wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even looking. 2 months later, they raised her another buck.
Wow.
And I just poured it onto it
Mm-hmm.
over there.
Yeah.
You know,
Even
see what
game.
Chevrolet does is you
Mhm.
get game playing and
Mhm.
look at the money they're making on that
Yeah.
damn shaft.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me about steel making now. That's got to be another section of your working experience.
Well, I guess what you say is that all of a sudden you got a job that you know practically nothing about. I'd been to steel mills and knew how electric arc furnaces worked and course, I knew about steel, how it was made, how it was alloyed, and this. But now try and do it.
Mm-hmm.
First thing we get in this is you got to learn how to make steel somehow. So we buy that little furnace. You remember it?
Oh, yeah, right inside of 207.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That little arc furnace. And I took some people and we went and visited some steel mills, different mills on the country to watch them make steel, how they check temperature, how they pour, all the things
Mm-hmm.
to get some idea. So they got some idea of what's going on, what kind of protective clothing we have to wear, all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the furnace is ready to go, now we gotta learn how to operate it, how to take care of it, how to repair it,
Mm-hmm.
and work with the lab so that when we got her melted down, we take a sample, we take it down there, and they read it, and it's for carbon or whatever we want, and then they tell us how much the alloy and make sure we measure out and put it in the right alloys, and then we get it up to temperature in the right time and not burn out all the alloys and get her poured. You know, it was an awful lot of work. This is a job that was very important, I thought. It was a job that I just wanted to have control of. This was nothing new. Like when we put the 6,000-ton press lines in,
Mm-hmm.
I run the plant, but I run her a little bit from a distance. Maybe wasn't quite as close as I was at times, but every day the general foreman would check with me. We went over everything. But my main problem was right there at those 6,000-ton line, just like right there at this caster.
Mm-hmm.
And how many men I had. There's start with over there about 10 or 12 people I had. They're all single, all young people. And they like to work, but they like to go out and party too.
Oh, okay.
As we started getting along, started to get more familiar with it, and we make it heat and pour it, check it, one thing another. And we had that casting machine there.
Mm-hmm. A big circular table. Yeah.
And we were trying to pour just lumps of steel, to make some knuckles out of.
Mm-hmm.
And you got slag problems and everything. You got to learn how to handle the furnace, to blow it right, how to slag it off right. So we were going along, and this is about the time the tornado started up.
Mm-hmm.
And they had sent over prints on that front knuckle, caliper knuckle. I wanted to know if I could forge it. And I looked it over and I said, well, yeah, I can forge it, but I'm going to have to, those 6,000-ton presses were sitting idle at that time. And I said it'd take both of those presses in order to make it. I'd have to heat the steel, block it in one, and then trim it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd have to reheat it and take it over and finish it in the other press. and it'd be very expensive because of the waste of the steel. Well, it was going to go cast anyway, they said.
Okay.
So one day I stopped in and talked to Elmer, and I said, Elmer, I need special order for about $3,000. He said, what do you want it for? And I said, well, I want to take a couple old die blocks, and I want to make a stinky impression for that E-car knuckle. Yeah. And I said, I want to take a couple of blocks for the caster and pour a preform. He says, all right, we'll try it. So with a caster, I could pour a preform, or put metal where I needed it in order to forge it. So they made a die, and I went down there and I made some. I made, I had 4, 5, 6, one hand. That's all I made. And they weren't real good, but the die wasn't very good. It had been hastily made, but we had a couple that were fairly well filled out. But, you know, they're going to production and had to be some work done. A week before, 8 days before that line was to start, they come over and wanted to know if I had one of those knuckles laying around. And I said, yeah, I got one laying around, I think. I don't know. I'll go down and look. So I went down and looked, and yeah, here's one laying by the press. So I give it to them. It wasn't trimmed out. I told them how they can trim it out, you know. So they took it, put it on the test machine. 2 days later, they called me and said, you're the supplier of the E-car knuckle. I don't have dies. I don't have mold. Casting dies.
Surprised.
We went. I can only run one shift. I don't have any people broke in on that furnace. Nobody knows anything about it. The only people that got right there. So we get started making them, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We kept them going. A lot of days, boy, I go down there and I'm sticking in that casting machine. I get up there with a sledgehammer and help them knock them out and work right along with the guys.
Because they were stuck.
You know, that's one thing I can do, is swing a sledge.
Now, did the scrap utilization building, did that come along too while you were still there, Bud, or was that?
Yeah, that came, you know, that E-car knuckle started to push that other building.
Okay.
And, cause that E-car knuckle, we made that for a year or a little better. And, you know, we were able to do it with that little job. And we learned a lot about how to take care of a furnace and what that, and so they pushed along on the other. I wasn't satisfied right from the beginning on what we like, you know, they go to cut off billets for knuckles. I didn't really think that that was the right way to go, but keep saying they were limited for money and whatever. But we were able to get going. We didn't have as much trouble, you know, because we had some experience with one furnace. I had some people then that could run furnaces. So we were able to get the furnaces fired up, going. We had crane men that knew how to handle a ladle, and we were able to, on the casting machines, they were kind of new, but we came along pretty good. The only thing is, we should have had the roll machine that's in there to start with.
Okay. We were trying to pull that through a die or something?
Well, yeah, you pulled it through a die anyway, but you could only pull it down to a certain diameter, you know, and you couldn't that was all that was good for was the billet, like to make knuckles out of it.
Yeah, big billet.
And yeah,
Mhm.
and really it wasn't quite refined enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the rolling refines the green.
Yes, yeah.
So what we ended up finally was that you cut them off in a long bar and transfer them down and into a preheat furnace. And then it came off into the roll machine, you know, where it
okay.
went out. And we could make round and round corner square. We made rod steel and everything,
Mhm.
and it come out of there, and it did good. I mean, as a rule, that thing would run pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't remember the guy that took that over by me. I mean, Ned had it.
Well, Howard was in there sometime. Howard Rohrback.
Howard Rohrback run the production part, but
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
talking about the engineer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, Ralph McNitt was in there somewhere. I don't know whether he was the
Well,
first
yeah,
guy or the last
he
guy.
was the first guy.
Yeah.
But this guy, he's a tall blonde.
Hmm.
I can't.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he came over and he had the drawing of the bears.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I looked at these conveyors, transport hard steel. Looked at them and I said, hey, Christ, I got a bicycle chain and go to do a man's work.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we'd had that type of conveyor
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah.
And we went to an all alloy chain.
Yeah. Heavy duty.
Yeah.
Super duper. Yeah.
And where it was good, we used the roller
Mm-hmm.
chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got it running. And then they had some kind of an austerity program or something. For some reason, they shut it down. And it was just getting so she was going good.
Mm-hmm.
Then I retired.
When did you retire, bud?
75.
75?
January 75.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year after, they started it up. And I think they made what they run the first year they ran, they made about $2 million, which wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And one day they just pulled the plug on.
Yep. Tore it all out.
Pulled the
Got
plug
rid of
and
it.
everything else. Just pulled the plug. And
Yep.
I said, what are they going to do, Pete? He says, what they tell me, they pulled the plug and they got all the equipment up for sale. I mean, one day, yep,
Mm-hmm.
bang, just like that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever knew why.
No. No.
You know why?
No. Boy, that is great, bud.
There was the only thing
Yep.
about that was that, it was a job, it did a job.
Yeah.
But from the time I first started on it, when I quit, I worked 10 years in there. We didn't have it to work with,
Yeah.
but I was traveling around
Mhm.
here trying to learn
Learning.
this, learn that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting experience. You did an excellent job taking us through that 35 years or so in the forge plant there. That is just great.
Well, in the forge plant, there were two or three saying, it's hotter than hell and it's dirtier than hell.
Mm-hmm.
The work is hard,
Yeah.
but the people work hard.
They were willing to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they play just as hard as they work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Johnny Mock played a saxophone.
Mm.
And there was a Clarence Dietrich. Did you know him? He
Mm-mm.
worked in
Mm-mm.
material handling,
Mm-mm.
material control.
No, didn't know him.
Was over at the plant. Call up Clarence and say, hey, Clarence, about time we had a party. So in a few days, here he'd come. And he'd want some money. I don't remember how much it'd be, maybe $10, $15 a couple. But he'd go around through the plant.
Yeah, collect from everybody, yeah.
You know where the old 48 hall used
Yeah,
to be?
across the street there, yeah.
What he'd do, he'd go over there to the 48 hall and he'd win it.
Well, yeah,
And then they'd get a truck of beer and they'd back it right up there to the 48.
yeah.
Then we'd have a shrimp boil. And you could just eat shrimp for the fun out of your ear,
Oh, yeah.
drink beer,
Yeah.
and dance.
Yeah.
And we really would have a time.
Uh-huh.
Remember that, Betty? When we had those parties over to 40 and 8.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know, got along, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you're part of a good team, sort of, that's what you sort of had going there.
Yeah. You know, we had our differences and
Oh, sure.
we get mad once in a while. I ran into an hourly play a couple, about 4 or 5 years ago. He was a hammerman. And I don't know whether I was superintendent on nights. I think I probably was. Anyway, his absentee record was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And he come in late. And that just can't be. I mean,
Yeah.
and the hammer.
Yeah.
You know, a hammerman is, they only work half the time anyway.
Yeah.
So there's always two there, but they both got to be there when they start.
Mm-hmm.
I almost had him fired. In fact, I was going to fire him, and he was just about to get married again. Thinking about it, and I eased off a little bit. He did get married, and she straightened him out. He didn't quit drinking so much, or
Mhm.
straightened out.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a job repairing the electric truck, taking care of the truck batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go, when I traveled down that way, if I went that way, I'd stop and talk with him for a few minutes, ask him how he's getting along. And he said, well, he didn't tell me, he said, boy, he said, you know, I'm going to be working until I'm 70 years old. He said, but I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he had a second family, and
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Had to support it.
yeah, kind of time he gets through high school, why he
Yeah.
you know.
Be a grandpa. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I run into him one day, and the one thing when he was on the hammers, if I'd go by him when it was payday, I'd tell him, Christ, if I was you, I'd turn around and back up to get that check,
Uh-huh.
because you shouldn't walk over there and just pick it up, you know. The day I seen him downtown, and he come over to me and he says, Bud, he says, I'm gonna tell you something. He says, I'm glad you're not working over the plant, because you couldn't stand it. And I said, why? He says, well, I'll tell you why, quickly. He says, you know, you used to tell me I should back up to get my check. I never would have believed it.